was in a middle school, I think it was about 8th grade, when I realized that St. Paul and I were just like this. Because his writing style and mine were right on the same par. I was the king of the run-on sentence. And so is St. Paul. Did you hear that reading? Arthur, I don't know how you did it, because it's a little bit like Frank Sinatra. Doobie, 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 doo. I can't do. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. I saw some of you out there laughing. I was laughing. But at the heart of that reading is the human condition, is it not? It's something that we can all relate to in some way, on either a deep spiritual way of just trying to follow our walk with God, is something as simple as, why can't I get to the gym? It is literally that you have these ideas and that we can't quite make them happen. It's the human way. It is amazing. And it is that binds us all together. In a world that likes to divide us into all sorts of different things, the way we love to categorize one another, this is a reading where we can say, yes, we all deal with this. It is a thing that binds us together. And the church has called it things like original sin and all of these things like that. But what I would like to remind us, and kind of make it a little more simple, not easy, but simple, is that we're just all born with an incredible case of the gimmies. You know? The gimmies. Gimme, 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 gimme. And it's not because we're bad necessarily, it's because we want to stay alive. If you're a baby and you don't cry, you're probably not going to get fed. And so it's a part of our whole life that is, how do we deal with these gimmies? And St. Paul, not so eloquently, tries to describe that in the reading today, the first reading. But the other reading from Matthew comes along, and it just makes me smile. Because what I've realized is that the other reality of human nature is that we live in what I just call stress. And stress, best defined for me, is when my idea of what life should be and reality do not match up. That's stress. If I could just let go of my idea of what it should be and just pay attention to the way it is, my stress would go away. I just don't know how to do that, just like St. Paul talked about. And what I've realized is that, you know, he talks about it in this great reading where he says, okay, you generation, I don't even know how to talk to you, Jesus says. He goes, you know, John comes, he fasts, he doesn't do anything, you know, and you call him a demon. Jesus comes, Son of Man, comes and eats and drinks, and you call him a drunkard. And so it's kind of that way that where we are always in this tension with the way that we think it should be and the way it really is. Not that long ago, and it's an occupational hazard that I have, is that people kind of like to put me on the spot. You know, they kind of get you. You know those people in your life? You know, I'm learning to really appreciate these people instead of having them irritate me. Because earlier in my life, they just irritated me. Now I'm going, they're teaching me so much. But I was in a forum not that long ago. We were talking about things. It was probably 2 or 3 years ago. And this person looked at me and said, well, what's your bottom line? You ever been bottom lined like that? You know, and it was in the context of me being the rector and what's your bottom line on this theological topic. And I was so incredibly disappointing to this human being. Because I said, kindness. And they went, posh. And I was like, I know it's not a complex theological debate. It's just, that's my bottom line. Kindness. And we talked about that a little bit, and we argued and debated, and I just kind of kept coming back to it. He goes, so just being nice is your bottom line? And I was like, no. Not nice. Kind. And they said, what's the difference? I said, honesty. I said, I grew up in the South. We know how to be nice. It's great. But I will tell you, folks from New England, if you don't know me, lie to me and be nice. Your default should be nice, not rude, so, but I am saying that honesty is that difference, and kindness is that we can be kind to one another. And it is at my root level, and I've realized that we wrestle because there's the way the world is and the way that we want it to be. And kindness can kind of get lost, because if kindness is kind of the bottom line, it's kind of like this reading from Paul. It's really difficult to be kind. Have you noticed that? That people wrestle with kindness? I do. I notice it all the time. People just aren't kind. And when they are, I really appreciate it. And I'm not always kind, and I forget. And I go, what is that about? Is that part of what I'm talking about? And the more I've thought about when this guy put me on the spot, and he said, I said, it is simple, you're right. I think he was very disappointed that that's all I learned in seminary, was that kindness was my bottom line. He wanted me to kind of come up with some sort of, systematic theology, which I still think is an oxymoron. Think about it. Systematic study of God. Really? Nothing about the study of God has been systematic in my life. But it's about how do we hold together our relationship. My relationships aren't very systematic, but they are holistic. But I digress. But this kindness piece, how do we get there? You don't just wake up one day and say, I'll be kind, any more than we can say about our spiritual practices of, prayer or getting to the gym. How do we get there? And what I've learned by being in relationship with communities and with individuals is that one practice leads towards kindness, and it's a practice of gratitude. And now you may say, oh yeah, I've heard that one. Oprah started that. Well, no, Oprah didn't start it. She may have made it popular, but it's this practice. How do we get to kindness? And it's gratitude. And it sounds so simple. It is incredibly simple, but it is not easy, because it is so much easier to complain, isn't it? I mean, just think about the church and what we bicker. What if, we didn't have the right prayer book? I mean, we would never argue over that in the Episcopal Church. I mean, my gosh. And what's crazy about these type of things, about the way the world is and the way we want it to be, that we don't just participate in that kind of complaining and arguing ourselves. We actually get God into it. It's amazing. God likes right one better than right two. We can giggle about this, but we do this on all sorts of issues. And I just remember, given that it's Independence Weekend, and think about that great phrase that is attributed to Abraham Lincoln, that we should probably worry a little less, and I paraphrase, whether God is on our side, and we might worry a little bit more about whether we're on God's. Instead of pulling God into ours, we might pay attention to where God is and go there. And so this reality and these tensions that we have in life, we struggle with what we know we should do, and then we want the world to be a certain way, and it's really not. And we're just kind of all over the place. And then this bottom line thing of kindness. And how do we get there? And so what I will tell you is that complaining is just easy. I just went to Florida and back in a car on purpose. And I will tell you that there was a moment where, you're driving through the traffic, and then I had this discovery on the way down that I am not young anymore. I'm not old, but I'm not young anymore. And I made this discovery when I got out of the car to fill it up with gas after I'd been sitting for 5 hours. And I went, oh, my hips. And I went, when did that happen? I was like, oh, my gosh. And, I could just feel how just complaining I was becoming. Do you know that stretch of 95 between the George Washington Bridge and Richmond, Virginia? Some people call that the Mid-Atlantic. That's hell. I love that area. I just hate that stretch of 95. And I found myself just beginning to just go, And my son, who is 14, who they should have the corner marketed on complaining, right? 14-year-olds? Well, he said, Dad, we get to go to Florida. And I went, oh, how does he know that? And then he goes, at least we're not broken down. And I went, oh, he's doing it to me again. I mean, he just has that way. And I mean, I'm not saying that he's an angel. He was trying to give it to his dad. What I'm saying is, how do we practice it so that we can get back? Because it really is simple. It's just not easy. And so what I've realized is that these practices of our faith, yes, we might come up with some great theological debate or new interpretation of a biblical hermeneutic. How's that for theological kind of talk? We might do all that, but our practices of our faith, practicing gratitude, bit by bit. Who woke up this morning with a window open in their bedroom and went, oh yeah, I did. Now, I also woke up on July 4th with a window open and went, oh, you gotta be kidding me. And there's certain mornings that are easier, aren't there? Like this morning you wake up and you're like, oh, this is great. And I got to ride my bike to church, sore hips and all. And I realized that I was going to get to be with my community that I love and cherish. And I was like, wow. And the gratitude was just kind of going, whew. And gratitude, just like a smile and laughter, is contagious. But what I'm telling you is that this morning was easy. I need to develop practices in my life on those mornings that aren't. Those Monday mornings in February when you're going, ugh. And it can be as simple as keeping a journal. And at the end of the day and at the beginning of the day, writing 3 things. It's this practice. Because what I will tell you is that in my life, I'm learning that the most attractive people that I know, and I'm not talking physically, I'm talking the people that just draw me in and I go, gosh, I want to spend more time with them. They're grateful. It's so attractive. It is so, and I mean like a bug to light. It is just like, you go, oh. And what I think Jesus is encouraging us is to be grateful, to practice gratitude, so that in turn we can be kind, not only to others, but I learn when I start to practice gratitude on a systematic, intentional basis, is that I start to be kind to myself. I start to see the child of God that God sees. I start to be a little kinder and gentler to myself. And thus, that goes out into the world. So, it's not very slick, or it's not very theologically, savvy, but it is my bottom line. It's kindness. It's what we strive for as humans. And the way to that is to practice gratitude. I encourage you to examine your life and how you might practice that. Because Jesus ends this gospel with an incredible promise. And I think a grateful heart is the only way that we can accept this incredible invitation. Jesus says to each and every one of us, come to me, all you that are weary and are carrying heavy burdens, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light.